Can you give me a quick overview of the new guidance feature from Marvin Labs and what's the main goal behind it?
The guidance feature on Marvin Labs works by extracting guidance statements, anything that is a forward-looking statement that management makes from a company's primary sources. So that can be anything from an annual or quarterly report, a press release, earnings call transcript, or any other public forum. Takes those, gets the relevant information out of them, and then it automatically evaluates them once they come due.
Alex, why is tracking management guidance so important for investors and analysts?
One of the holy grails of equity research and investment analysis is to get a sense for management quality, in particular, getting that from the outside. Research shows that one of the skills that is most correlated with management quality is the ability of managers to accurately predict the future. Here we kind of talk about a very particular situation, namely we talk about the forecasts those managers share with the public. So what we're really looking at is not just at the skill of managers to combine their own data, both qualitative and quantitative, into good forecasts, but also having the diligence to only share those forecasts with the investing public that they are confident in. So really what we're doing here when we do guidance tracking is we're giving investors a sense of management quality.
How does the new guidance tracking feature deal with vague guidance like double-digit growth or similar to last quarter type statements?
Yeah, so that's the traditional crux of this, because a lot of guidance doesn't come in neatly packed numbers. So what we are doing is we are extracting the guidance target as people give it to us. So that can be anything from an exact number. Revenue is going to be 10.5 billion next quarter. It can be a range. It can be a growth target. It can be even something as vague as low to mid single digits. And then one of the advantages of modern day LLMs is that they can make sense of this.
How do you make sure the guidance pulled from different sources is accurate and not taken out of context?
Yeah, so we are feeding the whole primary sources context into an AI agent. And then that AI agent gets the guidance statement out with all the context. So that means in circumstances where we're talking about the revenue is expected to grow by 15%, it will not just keep track of this 15%, but it will also have the full context of, okay, revenue at that point in time was that level, 15% means that. So we are at the time where the guidance is provided, getting a full context out that allows us to have the statement exist without any additional context.
When the forecasted period ends, how do you decide if the company actually hit their target? Do you go by reported numbers or something else?
At the time when companies report, we'll go back into their documents and just compare the targets to the numbers. We typically go by reported numbers. It depends a bit on what the guidance is on, because the guidance can be on anything from a reported number to an adjusted number to a non-financial metrics such as users, or even to an event where we're talking about a product introduction. We have some hierarchy of which kind of data we prefer for validation. So something that is in a table is always preferable to something that is just in flow text. But we are typically seeing that our validation statements come from anything from a table, from flow text, from charts, from anything that companies provide.
Do the new guidance features show trends over time, like how a company meets or misses its guidance? I guess this could be useful for spotting reliable or over-optimistic management teams.
In our first release, what we're doing is we are just reporting on the raw statements, because that is what we're hearing from our clients. That is what they want. And that's what their predominant focus is. They have the skill and the capabilities to aggregate those up. Eventually, we want to get around creating a score for management or for a CEO's tenure in a company to aggregate the score up. Right now, our focus is on just making sure that every guidance statement, every forward-looking statement that management gives is extracted and scored accurately.
In terms of the new guidance feature, how does it fit into an analyst's workflow? Can analysts export the data into models and get alerts? I'm just wondering, how easy is it to use on a day-to-day basis?
We are including this as part of our regular earnings analysis. Whenever a company is publishing earnings, we update a bunch of other AI-based analytics and our guidance analytics, because that is where a lot of the guidance statements are being provided, and that's where a lot of the data is there to evaluate the statements. We provide this to our client base in whatever format they prefer, whether this is via our web app, email, or customized report. We are a tech company, so we are happy to work with our clients in getting the right format they prefer.
So with the launch of the new guidance tracking feature, is there anything that stood out initially regarding analysis?
I think the very interesting thing for us was discovering just how different companies are in providing guidance. You have some incredibly tight-lipped companies who gives guidance on 5 numbers a quarter out, and that's it. They rarely let an off-the-cuff guidance pass them. They're incredibly disciplined. Then you have companies that are disciplined. They rarely make off-the-cuff remarks, but they give guidance on a dozen or 2 numbers. Microsoft is a typical example of that, who gives you 1 quarter out and even end of year guidance on a bunch of numbers. And then you have the wild, wild west. Then you have, think Elon Musk, where you have lots of off-the-cuff guidance given ad hoc on an earnings call, where you also have troubles validating some of the guidance because there's a guidance statement coming out and then you have no way of validating that. It's incredibly interesting how different companies are, but I think it's important to highlight that the Elon Musk situation is still fairly rare. There's not a lot of CEOs going around being so undisciplined in providing guidance. Most CEOs, most management teams are fairly disciplined at the very least in giving guidance.
How would the guidance tracking tool hold CEOs that use AI avatars to account, given some of the Q1 earnings that's been presented by AI avatars?
It's actually a very interesting development. I think the big thing it does, it instills discipline, right? There is no more off-the-cuff random remarks. Most companies have now converged to a model where you have prepared remarks that are effectively written off a piece of paper. Most CEOs don't make off-the-cuff remarks in their prepared remarks. The off-the-cuff remarks come in a question and answer session, bigger industry events where sometimes disciplines slip. Even now with avatars, they are still only for the prepared remarks. So they are kind of fixing something in a section that is highly orchestrated already. But it will be interesting to see if we see a difference between CEOs that rely on avatars, who presumably are slightly more disciplined in their messaging, compared to CEOs who prefer to do it live.
Do guidance tracking features like this, do you think it makes CEOs more or less accountable, given the fact checking that's now taking place with the help of AI?
That's a very good question. So what we're seeing right now is that there's a lot of executives that are already incredibly disciplined. This is not the first time the industry has seen third parties evaluating their communication closely. Most CEOs are aware that investors and analysts, the press, are listening to their every word and analyzing it. So this is very much not new. The ones that are undisciplined, they're not undisciplined because they think they can get away with it. They are undisciplined because that's one of their traits.